So we discuss larynx. Larynx is what? Larynx is the organ of production of a voice or phonation. Means it is a passage in which air is passed. So larynx is always more often time larynx is open and pharynx is closed because it is the organ of respiratory passage. And now the situation where larynx is present. Larynx is present in 3 points, that is anterior midline of the neck, extended from the root of the tongue to trachea, and it has the cervix. It has the relation towards the vertebrae is 3 to 6, and that is the situation. Then the size of the larynx. Larynx is mainly it has male having 44, whereas female having 36 millimeter, and the breadth is this is the length. Breadth is about breadth means diameter, posterior and the anterior diameter are vary towards the male to female. Then the larynx is a constitution of larynx. What is the part belongs to the larynx? Mainly cartilages of the larynx is the 9 cartilages are present to provide larynx consists of 9 cartilages which provide the structure of the larynx. So what are the cartilages? They are mainly thyroid, cricoid, epiglottis. These are unpaired cartilage because the epiglottis this is the thyroid and this is the cricoid. These are the unpaired, whereas here you can see arytenoid just above to it cuneiform and corniculate. These are the pair form. Now the thyroid cartilage. Before we go towards the thyroid cartilage, what are the structure? Larynx superiorly means it extends from root to trachea. So superiorly trachea is tongue, root of the tongue is present, whereas inferiorly means root of the tongue is the part where laryngeal part of the pharynx present, whereas inferiorly it is continued at trachea. This is completed with the description and the situation of the larynx. Now we go towards the our detail regarding thyroid cartilage. So thyroid cartilage is what? Thyroid cartilage is nothing but it is a cartilage which is a V-shaped cartilage which has 2 lamina. This is the 2 lamina. This form 2 lamina, just as our book. If the 2 book, you can imagine from this if this is the larynx thyroid cartilage, then this 2 part is the lamina, right and the left side. These are joined at anteriorly, so anterior border is fused, whereas the posterior border is free. Now the anterior border which are fused in the male, that is 90-degree angle, in the female that is 120-degree. Due to this angle formed, so it is a prominent angle, prominent acute angle, which is known as Adam's apple. Now the laryngeal, upper border of the laryngeal we discussed, means the anterior border. Anterior border is what? You can see from this figure, you can see this is the anterior border, whereas this form, this is the anterior border, and the posterior border are continuous to form the cornu. This is the cornu, superior cornu and inferior cornu. These are formed the extension of the posterior border. So the superior cornu, here you can see the superior cornu is connected to the greater cornu by the hyoid bone, that is lateral hyoid ligament. Means superior cornu is attached to the hyoid bone by a ligament which is known as a thyrohyoid ligament. Now the inferior cornu, this part is inferior cornu is articulated with the cricoid cartilage forming the cricothyroid joint. And the posterior border and another thing is that the inferior border of the this inferior border, this part is inferior border of the thyroid cartilage is convex in front and concave behind. You can see from this figure, this is the inferior border, this is concave first, this is in front, there is a convex, then concave behind, and they it is in the midline, it is attached to the cricoid by a line which is known as a cornus elasticus. Then the outer surface and inner surface. What are the structure provide attached to the outer surface? This is the outer surface. Outer surface, there are 3 muscle mainly attached. Where attached? They are mainly attached in between the, this is superior tubercle, inferior tubercle. So superior tubercle, where it is present? Superior tubercle is line. The line joining superior tubercle and inferior tubercle is known as oblique line. Now the inferior tubercle is present in between the straight and a concave line. In between them there is a tubercle is present which is known as inferior tubercle or the outer surface of the thyroid. Both tubercle join together form the thyroid oblique line, where our mainly thyroid gland is also extend up to this place, and there is also characteristic having the relation in that relating to it, because thyroid gland and the carotid sheath both are related, so they are related with the thyroid cartilage also. Now the what are the muscle, that is thyrohyoid, sternothyroid and thyropharyngeus. Means there is the origin of the thyrohyoid occur, means here you can see from the figure that this is the hyoid bone and this is the thyroid cartilage. They are joined here is the sternum. So from sternum there is a insertion of the thyroid occur by forming sternothyroid muscle. From thyroid to hyoid there is a muscle arise which is known as thyrohyoid muscle. Now what are the attachment occurs in the lower border of the inferior canal. Means here the inferior canal there is the lower border, there is a triangular shaped, here from you can see from this figure there is a triangular shaped cricothyroid. Here it is a cricothyroid membrane, inside towards it the cricothyroid muscle is present. So now what are the structure relating to the line joining superior canal to inferior canal. There is a line joining in which there is palatopharynx, salpingopharyngeus and stylopharyngeus. These are the muscles which are related to this border. The attachment of the posterior border, we can say that these muscles are attached at the posterior border of the thyroid cartilage. Whereas the anterior border, whereas the inner aspect, what are the muscles are present? Mainly median thyroepiglottic ligament. So median thyroepiglottic ligament is the root of the epiglottis, means the lower part of the epiglottis attached to the notch of the thyroid cartilage, forming a median thyroepiglottic ligament. Then thyroepiglottic muscle on each side. So from here and here thyroepiglottic muscle are present. These are the thyroepiglottic muscles origin, or the some portion was seen. Then the vestibular fold and buccal fold also present. So you can see from this thyroarytenoid and buccalis muscle, these are the muscle are present on each side. Then there is a thyroarytenoid and buccalis muscle. These are, you can see from this figure, the attachment of the inner side of the thyroid cartilage. Now we go towards the epiglottic cartilage. Epiglottis mainly having two end, upper end, lower end. Epiglottis is a leaf-like structure. You can see from this figure. The upper end is the free, whereas the lower end is attached to the median notch of the thyroid cartilage. Now it has a two lateral border. Here two lateral border and a two surface, that is anterior and the posterior surface. Inferior end is narrow and connected to the inner surface of the thyroid cartilage. Now the question is arise the attachment of the thyroid cartilage. So upper end is broad and it provides the inlet of the placed in the anterior wall of the larynx. So epiglottis forms the anterior wall of the larynx. It lies behind the base of the tongue and a hyoid bone. This is hyoid bone, and this is the this part belongs to the tongue. So in between the hyoid bone and the tongue there is epiglottis is present. Then the inner surface of the there is the lower end, there is a thyroepiglottic ligament which forms, which is we know at the point of the thyroid notch. Now the upper end is broad, free and projects towards the hyoid bone. Here hyoid bone. Then the attachment at the anterior surface there is the epiglottic fold is formed. So this is the epiglottis. This is the arytenoid cartilage. So a fold is forming around the larynx by formation of a epiglottic fold, which forms the boundary of the larynx. So epiglottic fold which is formed by the, here you can imagine this is the epiglottis and here posteriorly arytenoid cartilage is formed. So there is a fold formation that is known as epiglottic fold, and it continues as inlet of larynx, whereas posteriorly inferiorly it is superiorly inlet of larynx, and inferiorly it is continues as a trachea. Now the anterior surface is connected to the median glossoepiglottic fold. Means here the glossoepiglottic fold, see from the figure. Then the hyoid bone, there is a in the epiglottis and the hyoid bone there is a ligament is formed which is known as a hyoepiglottic ligament. Why it is called a hyoepiglottic ligament? Because because connecting both the hyoid bone and epiglottis. Now the posterior surface is covered by a mucous membrane and present tubercle on the lower part. Means by mucous membrane means in this part is anterior part is lies towards the notch, whereas the posterior surface is lies forming a mucous membrane. There is a mucous membrane lining is present. Epiglottic muscle, which is a important muscle. Why? Because it forms a boundary. It closes the inlet of the larynx. So when there is a swallowing occur, through the esophagus, which is just present behind to this fold, then the epiglottis moves and closes the inlet, so that food particle does not enter through this larynx. And thyroepiglottic muscle, thyroid is present anterior to the epiglottis, because anterior wall is formed by the epiglottis. So thyroepiglottic ligament, which is formed anteriorly, it mainly work as a keep the thyroid cartilage. What it keeps opening of the inlet. Means when there is a closing occur after swallowing over, for the respiration to continue, there is what happened, the thyroid gland and epiglottic ligament opens the inlet for the breathing. So epiglottic closes, and epiglottic is present laterally, you can see. And then the arytenoid cartilage. Before arytenoid cartilage, we cover the cricoid cartilage. So cricoid cartilage is mainly ring shaped cartilage. Means why it is ring? Because anteriorly it is arch, and posteriorly there is a lamina is present, and the cricoid cartilage is mainly having a quadrilateral plate is present on the posterior. Then the now the in the cricoid cartilage, the posteriorly which is present the lamina, the posterior lamina, this part having two surface, anterior surface and the posterior surface. On the posterior external surface there is a vertical ridge is present, whereas in the anterior surface there is mucous membrane lining occur. And what are the muscle attached to the posterior? On the either side there is a cricoarytenoid muscle is present. Means this side, either side, the cricoid and the arytenoid, from this there is a muscle goes to form the cricoarytenoid muscle. You can see that this is the cricoid cartilage. From the lateral side there is a muscle arises from the upper border of the cricoid cartilage towards the arytenoid bone. This is the arytenoid part. This muscle is known as lateral cricoarytenoid, and medial cricoarytenoid muscle is present. Now this is the surface which is laterally present. Now the lower border of the cricoid cartilage is articulate with the trachea. This part, these are the formation of a trachea occur, where cricoid forms cricotracheal ligament was formation occurs and at the lower border. And then there is lateral side. Here you can see the posterior cricoarytenoid, and here the lateral cricoarytenoid muscle is present. And what are the function of these? They are makes the movement of the larynx during the process of respiration. So in this way we cover the muscle which are related to the lateral cricoarytenoid, transverse arytenoid, and the cricothyroid. Cricothyroid is the turning fork. Means this muscle is present. You can see from this figure that lower border of the conio, means inferior horn of the thyroid cartilage, forms a ligament with the cricoid to form cricothyroid ligament. And then this is the lower border, and there is a cricobuccal membrane is present, which is the here the cricobuccal membrane, which here the cricobuccal membrane is present on the upper border of a cricothyroid ligament. There is a cricobuccal ligament is present on each side. On the superior border there is a arytenoid cartilage is present. On the superior border the arytenoid cartilage is articulate with the cricoid cartilage. So what we studied, that the two surface, external and internal surface. Externally cricoarytenoid muscle is present, whereas internally this structure, the pyramidal structure, is lined by the mucous membrane of the boundary of the larynx. Then the Lower border is cricoid cartilage is articulate with the trachea by forming cricotracheal ligament. Here cricotracheal ligament is formation occur, and the upper border is articulate with the thyroid cartilage forming cricothyroid ligament. Now the arytenoid cartilage. So arytenoid cartilage is what? It is a pyramidal shaped cartilage, and it forms the lateral boundary as well as a posterior boundary of the larynx. Now what are the function of the arytenoid cartilage, and what are the structures present mainly arytenoid cartilage? Means the arytenoid cartilage is present mainly on the upper surface of the cricoid cartilage. Here you can see the upper surface of the cricoid cartilage. There is presence of the arytenoid. So arytenoid has a three surface: anterolateral. From this figure you can see the anterolateral surface, posterior surface, and a medial surface. And what are the structures and the two ends, that is apex and a base. These are the ends. Now the base is articulate with it. Here the base portion is articulate with the upper border of the arytenoid cartilage. Now the whereas apex is articulate with the corniculate. This is the corniculate cartilage. Now the base is prolonged. This part is prolonged to form the vocal process. Lower part of the base is from the vocal, whereas the upper part is from the vestibular process. So vestibular process is on the relation with the apex, whereas the vocal process is on the relation with the base. Then there is a posterolateral, there is a muscular process is present. Why there is a muscular process? Because there is the many muscles are origin or insertion occurs. Which muscle? Mainly the insertion of a cricoarytenoid, posterior cricoarytenoid, and lateral cricoarytenoid. Means here from this figure you can see easily that here in this part is lateral cricoarytenoid and posterior cricoarytenoid. They are mainly inserted at this base. This is the muscular process where insertion occurs. Now we discuss that what are the attachment occurs. So attachment mainly the vocal process. The vocalis muscle is present, which is the extension of the base of the arytenoid cartilage, and whereas the above there is vocal process is present towards the apex, which articulate with the vocalis muscle or vestibular muscle fold up is attached. And now a main lateral boundary occur by the formation of arytenoid and epiglottic fold. So arytenoid epiglottic fold which is lined by the mucous membrane. Here the posteriorly this is arytenoid and anteriorly epiglottis. So a fold is a formation occur that is called arytenoepiglottic fold. And this arytenoepiglottic fold of mucous membrane where both the corniculate and the cuneiform cartilage are attached towards the arytenoid. So medial surface of the arytenoid is medial surface is mainly covered up by the mucous membrane. So now we cover all the surface, that is anterolateral surface, where anterolaterally we discussed that there is the muscle. Anterolaterally and medially is mucous membrane is present, and posterolateral there is a muscular process is present, which is give insertion to the cricoarytenoid and posterior cricoarytenoid and the lateral cricoarytenoid, whereas anterior surface is attached to the vestibular. We discussed the vestibular process, which are related to the vestibular fold. So these are the main things regarding the arytenoid cartilage. Now here the posterior surface we discussed. Now between the base and apex there is a oblique arytenoid which continues at the arytenoepiglottic muscle, which form the lateral boundary of the larynx, and it is lined by the mucous membrane. So a quadrate membrane is present in between the here this is the quadrate membrane which present in between the epiglottis, thyroid, and arytenoid. So this forms the quadrate membrane which forms the larynx boundary superiorly. Now the corniculate cartilage. Corniculate cartilage is a small conical cartilage which articulate with the arytenoid at the apex of the arytenoid. Apex part of the arytenoid is articulated with the corniculate cartilage. Whereas cuneiform, it is a small superior laterally, means it is a small conical also, but it is present on the mucous membrane of a RE epiglottic fold, which we discussed. That RE epiglottic fold is formed anteriorly by epiglottis and posteriorly by arytenoid. This forms the lateral boundary of the larynx. Means on each side it is formed, and where the all the laryngeal respiration occurs by this fold. So now the corniculate cuneiform, we discuss all the cartilage. Now we go towards the ligaments and membranes. So before we go into ligaments and membrane, we should discuss that laryngeal joint. So what are the joints formed by the larynx? Mainly two joints we discussed, that is cricothyroid joint and cricoarytenoid joint. So cricothyroid joint and cricoarytenoid joint, they are both synovial joint. So where they are mainly situated and what are the functions we discussed. Firstly, the thyroid joint, which name itself says that this joint is formed in between the cricoid cartilage and the thyroid cartilage. So upper border of the cricoid cartilage and the lower border of the thyroid cartilage, and with the inferior corner, they come and join together to form there is a membrane form and join together by forming a joint which is known as a cricothyroid joint. So what it gives, what is the function? It mainly provides the rotatory movement. Means when the thyroid wants to rotate, this part is around the transverse axis, passing through this transversely, there is rotation occur, whereas a vertical rotation, this is the transverse rotation occur, whereas a vertical rotation occurs by the cricoarytenoid joint, where this part is from the vertical rotation first from this part. So now the joint we cover. Now we go towards the ligament. So before we go towards the ligament, we should know a basic knowledge regarding the extrinsic and intrinsic ligament. So extrinsic means the outside the cartilage, means those cartilage which forms the in between two other cartilage, that is outside the cartilage, is known as extrinsic cartilage. So extrinsic cartilage is mainly responsible where it is mainly thyrohyoid ligament, thyrohyoid membrane, because there is two part, to bone is to cartilage is joined, that is thyroid cartilage, whereas a higher bone they make together to form thyrohyoid membrane. So we discussed before that the thyrohyoid membrane is present on the laterally. There is the upper border of the thyroid cartilage, where the upper border of the superior horn of the thyroid cartilage, there is a membrane goes and upward to form the lateral border of the hyoid bone to form the thyrohyoid ligament. The thyrohyoid ligament which is formed on the thyrohyoid membrane. So thyrohyoid membrane is formed first. After that there is a on the lateral side there is a thickened structure is formed which is known as a ligament. So what is the difference between membrane and a ligament? Membrane is form a sheet like structure, whereas a ligament forms only a cord like structure. So due to this this forms the ligament, whereas on the each side there is ligament formation occur, and in between the ligament there is a membrane which is present. So this is a extrinsic membrane, extrinsic ligament and extrinsic membrane. So what are the structures pierce the membrane? That is internal laryngeal nerve and a superior laryngeal nerve. These are the structure pierce this ligament. And what are the attachment occurs through this ligament? There is mainly the surface, there is the muscle, mainly thyroid, sternohyoid, omohyoid, whereas inner surface is lined by the mucous membrane, and laterally there is a cartilage, there is ligament occurs. So this is the boundaries of the ligament and the membrane. Now the hyoepiglottic ligament, mainly its name itself shows that it is in between the hyoid bone and epiglottis, and it is related with the hyoid bone and epiglottis. You can see from the figure 16.4 here, the hyoid bone and epiglottis, there is a ligament formation occur which is known as a hyoepiglottic ligament, which mainly function towards to provide stability towards the epiglottis. Now the next is cricotracheal ligament. Cricotracheal ligament is present lower border of the cricoid cartilage, upper border of the trachea, both are joined to form the cricotracheal ligament. Intrinsic ligament is its intrinsic means within the within means what? The ligament which is present in between the larynx, mainly that is quadrate membrane. What is quadrate membrane? So quadrate membrane is present here. We discussed that a quadrate membrane is present in epiglottis, thyroid and arytenoid. The membrane which is extend in between them is known as a quadrate membrane. So upper part is known as a quadrant membrane, whereas lower there is a cricothyroid membrane, and both are divided by upper a vestibular part, whereas lower is a vocal membrane is present. So lower limit of the quadrant membrane is the vestibular fold, whereas upper limit of the conus elasticus or cricothyroid membrane is vestibular fold. So what are the quadrant membranes extent we discussed? Here lower border is free border which form vestibular, whereas upper border which form RE epiglottic fold. So RE epiglottic fold is the upper fold of the quadrant membrane, where the arytenoid and the epiglottis forms a fold at the upper border of the quadrant membrane, and which is formed, and conus elasticus or lower border is of the cricovocal membrane, which extends upward medially to form the arch of a cricoid cartilage. So anterior part is thick, which is known as a cricothyroid ligament, whereas the upper border is known as a vocal fold. So anteriorly there is a cricothyroid ligament is formed. Here the cricothyroid ligament is formed, which is thick, whereas posteriorly the upper border is formed the vocal fold. So this is the extreme intensive motion, and now we go towards the vestibular ligament. Vestibular ligament is present in between the two mucous membrane, lower margin of the quadrant membrane, and anteriorly vestibular ligament is present in the vestibular fold. Anteriorly it is attached to the thyroid cartilage and the thyroepiglottic ligament, whereas posteriorly it is attached to the arytenoid cartilage above the vocal process. Now the vocal ligament is lies on the vocal membrane, vocal fold. That is vocal ligament is a twin number on each side within the fold, and it forms the cricovocal ligament. This is the cricovocal ligament, and anteriorly it is formed by the thyroid cartilage. Here the thyroid cartilage is present, whereas posteriorly it is formed by the arytenoid process. Then the thyroepiglottic ligament, where thyroid and epiglottis mixed, there is a small ligament was formed, which is known as the thyroepiglottic ligament. Now we discuss towards the cavity of the larynx. What does it mean? Means inside the larynx there is a space is present. So how the space is formed? The space is formed by the this part, vocal fold and vestibular fold. They inside them there is a space which larynx. So before that there is another space which is known as cavity of larynx, that is in the epiglottis, inlet of epiglottis. Here you can see there is this space which we called as a cavity of larynx. So cavity of larynx means that cavity of larynx, what it says, that it extends from inlet of larynx to the lower border of a cricoid. So here from inlet of larynx to lower border of a cricoid cartilage, here from that place. So what happened, that the inlet of larynx is present obliquely. You can see this is not inside in a straight way, it is present in an oblique way. So obliquely present. Here you can see a arrow which given in a obliquely manner. So cavity of larynx, what is say, it is found that it is formed by the anteriorly by epiglottis, posteriorly by arytenoid, extended up to cricoid cartilage, superiorly by inlet of larynx. So here all these things mentioned, that the inlet is bounded by the anteriorly by epiglottis, posteriorly by interarytenoid fold. Interarytenoid fold of a mucous membrane means the transverse fold, and the inner side of the transverse arytenoid fold there is a mucous membrane is present, and on each side that is RE epiglottic fold. We discussed before that RE epiglottic fold which forms the boundary, lateral boundary of the inlet of larynx. Now the and it opens into laryngopharynx. The cavity of larynx opens into laryngopharynx, means how? By backward and upward direction it opens. Then we go towards the diameter. Up to 3 year it is about 3 millimeter, and up to 12 year it is increased by 1 millimeter each year. So why? Because there is much and much respiration air can pass through the children to puberty. So this is the fact. Then we go towards the in this paragraph we discuss the inlet of larynx. So inlet of larynx is comes under the cavity of larynx. Then we go towards the rima vestibuli and rima glottis. So because rima vestibuli and rima glottis is the narrowest space in our body. So here it is written that rima is the narrowest part of the larynx. Larynx narrowest part is the rima, and which is about 23 millimeter in males and the female having 17 millimeter. So what is rima? Rima is nothing but it is a space in between right and left vestibular fold is known as rima vestibuli, and the space in between vocal fold to vocal fold, here you can see from this figure, this part and this, here you can show that there is a vocal fold, is two vocal fold is present. In between the two vocal fold there is a space which is known as rima vestibuli. So in this way you can see above to the vocal fold there is a vestibular fold, and they have such like a space. So now the vocal fold is attached to how the anteriorly it is attached to the inner surface of the epiglottis or the posterior surface of the epiglottis, which is says that the thyroid angle at the, because epiglottis attached to the thyroid at the thyroid nodes, so there is a angle was formed which is known as a thyroid angle. So vocal fold which is anteriorly attached to the thyroid cartilage, and posteriorly it is attached to the process, vocal process of arytenoid. So what this is the boundary of the, or this is known as a boundary vocal fold, and this rima glottis is posteriorly by interarytenoid fold, because arytenoid process is formed, and inside there is a arytenoid process, two arytenoid process in between, there is a transverse arytenoid muscle was present, and fold was formation occurred, and there is a mucous membrane is present. So rima has a two part. What are they? The part which from this figure you can see, if we say this is the vocal fold, so above to the, this is the cartilage, arytenoid cartilage, above to the cartilage that is known as intermembranous part, and this part is known as intercartilaginous part. This is intercartilaginous part, and this part is known as intermembranous part. Now this is the things regarding the rima glottis and rima vestibuli. Now the you can see from this figure that what they say in this paragraph, what is said that the vestibular fold and vocal fold, they divided the cavity of a larynx into three parts. What are the vestibule or larynx, vestibule of larynx or supraglottis, whereas the part between the vestibular and vocal fold which is known as the sinus of larynx, whereas the part below to that it is infraglottis. So in this way we discuss that supraglottis, sinus of larynx, infraglottis. Now sinus of Morgagini, what is it? Sinus of Morgagini is nothing but it is the space in between vestibular fold and vocal fold. So what is the role of this? That sinus of Morgagini, which is anteriorly prolonged and which contains saccule of the larynx, means saccule-like structure is present inside it. Why we study saccule? Because saccule contains mucous gland which lubricate the vocal fold. Why? Which lubricate vocal means it contains the mucous gland which secrete the oil, and this oil is lubricate the vocal fold. So this is called as oil can of larynx. So which is known as oil can of larynx, saccule known as oil can of larynx of the vocal fold. Now the mucous membrane of larynx. So we discuss everywhere that mucous membrane of larynx which provide the cavity of the larynx. So anterior surface and upper half the posterior surface of the epiglottis, there is epiglottic fold is present. We discussed epiglottic before, that anteriorly there is epiglottic whereas posteriorly there is arytenoid, and they come together to form epiglottic fold, and the vocal fold is lined by the stratified squamous epithelium, and the rest of this mucous membrane is covered by ciliate columnar epithelium. So mucous membrane is loosely attached to the cartilage of the larynx except at the vocal ligament and the posterior surface of the epiglottis, where it is thinly and firmly adherent. Why? Because except in that place they are moved to their epiglottis moved during the process of respiration and swallowing, whereas the vocal ligament is moved to arrange the voice, tonicity of the voice, so that this place there is a loose attachment of the mucous membrane occur, and the mucous gland is absent over the vocal fold. That is the important point, because but plenty are present on the anterior surface of the epiglottis around the cuneiform cartilage and in the vestibular fold, and these glands are scattered rest of the larynx. Mucous gland is absent in the vocal cord. Now we go towards the intrinsic muscle of larynx. We discussed before, but here we discuss by a diagram. This chart. So cricothyroid muscle, that is present in between cricoid and thyroid. So lower part of the muscle is known as a cricothyroid. So it originates from the lower border and the lateral surface of the cricoid, and insertion at the lower border of the thyroid cartilage. It forms tuning form of the larynx. So tuning form you can see in the figure which mentioned in here and here. So you can see that the tuning form is just like this part. This type of tuning form is named as a shape. So we called cricothyroid as a tuning form of larynx. Now the fiber, how they pass. So course is that they pass back pass backward and upward. So at backward, this part is formed as backward and inward, which it is written. So now backward and upward. So in this way they are present. Then posterior cricoarytenoid. Posterior cricoarytenoid, its name is that it is present at the posterior surface of the cricoid and attached to the muscular process of the arytenoid. Here upward is present and upward and laterally. Direction is just like we have. Now the lateral cricoarytenoid, which is present lateral to the cricoid cartilage. Lateral part of upper part of arch of a cricoid and anterior aspect of a muscular process of a arytenoid, which present upward and backward, upward to arytenoid, backward to cricoid. Then the transverse arytenoid is present at the posterior surface of one arytenoid only. It is present here. You can see that this is present arytenoid. So in one arytenoid, that is transverse arytenoid is present, which present on the transversely. One arytenoid, the posterior surface, is attached to the another arytenoid of the posterior surface. Then the oblique arytenoid or epiglottic. Epiglottic is the obliquely present, mainly the muscular process of arytenoid to the apex of the arytenoid. And the oblique arytenoid arises from the arytenoid part where muscular process of one arytenoid obliquely to the apex of another arytenoid. Samely, and some fibers also insert at the epiglottic muscle. Epiglottic muscle, whereas a thyroarytenoid or thyroepiglottic, thyroid angle to the adjacent cricothyroid ligament, then thyroarytenoid or a thyroid ligament. This part is a thyroepiglottic ligament. It is a small structure. Thyroid angle adjacent to the cricothyroid ligament. Anterolateral surface of the arytenoid cartilage. If we go towards the thyroid arytenoid, whereas if we go towards the epiglottic, that is the upper fiber of a thyroarytenoid cover upward into epiglottic fold to reach the edge of epiglottis, which is known as a thyroepiglottic. Here, this part is continue towards the epiglottis, which is known as a thyroepiglottic. Pass forward, upward means forward, just like movement. So we only remember one, then we can call others. So how? By, you can see from this figure that only stop. Here a principle was given that action of a muscle, how that vocal process and muscular process move in a opposite direction. That is the principle. Means that when a muscle pass, for example, when many muscle pass medially, then the vocal process is go laterally. So they are opposite in direction of a movement. So resulting in, if vocal process is goes laterally, then abduction of a vocal cord is occur. That is the abduction. But if the muscle is passes forward and laterally, vocal process is goes medially, so adduction is occur. So adduction is only occurs by many muscles, that is cricoarytenoid, transverse arytenoid. So cricothyroid causes rocking movement of thyroid forward and downward at a cricothyroid joint. Thus this tensing and lengthening of the muscle occurs by cricothyroid. So here you can see that if the muscle passes laterally, medially means medially, here medially passes medially the vocal cord laterally and causes abduction of the vocal cord, whereas here the muscle passes laterally, the vocal cord passes medially, so there is abduction occur. So from this figure we can clarify the action of the extension muscle of the larynx. So this adduction. So here you can see that posterior arytenoid it goes here, this direction is posterior. So if they goes this direction means medially, so vocal cord goes laterally, so posterior, that what causes, that is the mainly thing that vocal cord abduction occurs. So posterior arytenoid is the only muscle which is responsible for the abduction of a vocal cord, whereas rest other muscle just as lateral cricoarytenoid, transverse arytenoid, cricothyroid arytenoid, thyroarytenoid, these are the causes adduction of the vocal cord. Now the muscle which tense the vocal cord means the tense means it does not move any disturbance, that is our cricothyroid. Why? Muscle which relax, which muscle responsible for the abduction of the vocal cord, and which muscle is responsible for adduction. So for abduction there is only one muscle, that is posterior cricoarytenoid. So posterior cricoarytenoid, how they causes the vocal cord, that is thyroarytenoid vocalis. this path. Vocalist which goes inward direction, so it makes the these are in a same direction, so they have the same function, that is the relaxation of the vocal cord. Whereas closures of inlet of larynx is oblique arytenoid and epiglottic fold. That is the main important. That is if epiglottic muscle is weak or tonicity occur, then the close of inlet of larynx occur does not occur, so many things happen. Then muscle which open the inlet of larynx, that is thyroepiglottics. So thyroepiglottics is present in forwardly, so it causes opening, whereas epiglottic force is present backward, and it causes backward direction, means so that it causes inlet of larynx close. So now we discuss that movement of a vocal port. So movement of a vocal port is mainly 4 types discussed in this table. That in the quiet breathing, means normal breathing, there is the muscle becomes pentagonal in shape, means the vocal port becomes pentagonal in shape. That is the if there is a phonation, means if we speak in that time, that muscle becomes sink. So you can see from this figure. Then the forced inspiration, means if we long time breathing occurs, so that there is a long shaped diamond shaped vocal cord occur. And in the whispering, there is upper part is sing and lower part is triangular, means intercartilagization is widely open, whereas intermembranous is a sing shaped. So arterial surface and venous drainage. So superior laryngeal artery is a branch of superior thyroid artery, and which drains this vocal cord, whereas superior laryngeal vein drains superior thyroid vein. So these are the venation. Now the below the vocal cord, what happened? Inferior laryngeal artery is present, and inferior laryngeal vein is present. Motor supply mainly recurrent laryngeal nerve, which supply posterior cricoarytenoid, lateral cricoarytenoid, transverse, oblique, arytenoid, epiglottic, thyroepiglottic, all type of arytenoid cartilage are supplied by recurrent laryngeal nerve to make the smooth action of the vocal fold. It is supplied all the interesting muscle except cricothyroid. Cricothyroid is not supplied by recurrent laryngeal nerve. So what is the supply of the cricothyroid? That is external laryngeal nerve. Whereas the sensory is by internal laryngeal nerve, which supplies the mucous membrane up to the level of a vocal cord, whereas the recurrent laryngeal nerve which supply the below the vocal cord. So there is a 2 type of nerves are distinguished by vocal fold. So upper part is supplied by the recurrent, which recurrent, that is our internal laryngeal nerve, whereas lower part is present by recurrent laryngeal, internal laryngeal, recurrent laryngeal. So it is written here. Then lymphatic drainage. Lymphatic drainage is mainly deep cervical lymph nodes, upper part, and the lower part is pharyngeal nodes, and also deep posterior inferior group of deep cervical nodes. Then we go to the clinical. So clinically mainly 2 types. Laryngitis means inflammation of larynx. Then there is another things that infection of larynx is known as laryngitis, which causes hoarseness of voice. Then if laryngeal edema occurs, then what happens? That obstruction of breathing occur. Edema is the small narrowest place, so it is so foreign bodies can usually lost, and we makes cough by this. Then the we discussed that next things are not important, but here one thing which is important, that is when foreign body leading may block in the laryngeal inlet, that is a suffocation occur. Then small foreign body may lost in the laryngeal ventricle, causes reflex closure of a glottis, which causes suffocation. Why suffocation occur? Then the next part, there is we discussed that when foreign body enter to our larynx, then there is a coughing occur. So our larynx upper part is supplied by internal laryngeal nerve, we discussed before. If this nerve is damaged or anesthesia occur, then this mechanism has not happened, so foreign bodies can enter into our body, into our respiratory system easily, and so that the reflex act is not present due to the anesthesia or damage of internal laryngeal nerve. Whereas the lower part is recurrent laryngeal nerve, which if both recurrent laryngeal nerve is damaged, then what happened? There is deep breathing occurs, become difficult through partial open glottis. If both occur, if one occurs, then what happened? Opposite vocal cord compensate further, and phonation becomes hoarseness. So there is and forceful phonation does not occur. There is failure of voluntary and reflex coughing occurs. Then if the tumor occur, then there is dysphagia, means low taking up food occurs. Then the recurrent laryngeal nerve is damaged, then what happens? There is a pressure occur, and alternation of a voice occur. Then the last thing, which is the laryngotomy, which we discussed that if there is the needle is inserted at the time of emergency below the thyroid prominence. While